Hi guys, I'm back again with some more stories for you today. Let's go to the first one, about OP's wife, who had an affair with OP's married co-worker. Well, OP brought his wife to his company's event, and crap hit the fan. Listen to the story to find out why, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, guys, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. My wife, Elle, 27 female, and I, 29 male, have been together 3 years, married for 1. I started a new job in March, great timing I know, and have been getting to know all of my co-workers. We're not in the US, so rules are relaxed. We've had some company events too, where spouses are expected to come. At one of these, I brought Elle. One of my colleagues, C, 34 male, looked shocked as soon as he walked in with his wife, J, and got really quiet as the 4 of us were all introduced and chatting. I didn't say anything at the time, but asked my wife about it when we got home. Well, turns out, Elle and C dated for a few months before we got together. If that wasn't awkward enough, Elle knew he was engaged to his now wife at the time. I knew before we got married that Elle had dated a taken man, during the exes talk, and I honestly didn't mind. And apparently, she hasn't seen C since. We talked. She said she was fine and has obviously moved on. But C came up to me in the office last month super angry, because his wife had asked him about Elle, after noticing how weird he was being, and accused me of forcing him to confess his affair. I told him that was ridiculous, and he needed to make peace with his wife. I thought that was the end of it. Nope. Things between C and J are apparently terrible, because at our most recent event, she cornered me when Elle was in the bathroom, telling me not to bring Elle to company events anymore. I felt bad for J, because she was honestly really upset, and asked me, couldn't I of all people understand how painful and humiliating this was? I don't think I was mean, but I did tell her in no uncertain terms that I'm not banning my wife from events just because it makes her uncomfortable. I don't feel betrayed by Elle, because it was before we were together, so I don't fully understand what Jay is going through. She walked away in tears, and C asked me again before he left. He said it wouldn't be fair for him to stop bringing Jay because she's not the one who did anything wrong. I said no. Since then, C has been treating me coldly at work, saying I'm making things harder for him, and I should do this because Elle messed up too. The way I see it, if C's wife chose to stay, she either trusts him or she doesn't. Elle is not flaunting herself to C when they see each other or anything, and I don't want to make Elle feel like I'm mad at her when I'm not. Am I the a-hole? So OP's coworker thinks that OP should exclude his wife from company events because her presence reminds his wife of his infidelity. His logic is that his wife shouldn't be punished because she didn't do anything wrong. While OP's wife's involvement with this individual is off-putting, she is the one who caused this L person's discomfort. By C's logic, C should be staying at home because he absolutely did something wrong to his wife. I sympathize with L, but neither OP nor his wife owe her special consideration. This issue is between her and her husband. Hopefully OP's wife has left her trashy past behind. But hey, that's between OP and his wife. And now let's see if the community agrees with me. Knit My Problem says, not the a-hole. If this other lady has an issue, she can stay away. Your wife was definitely wrong for having the affair, but it's all over and done with. And if she's chosen to forgive him, then she needs to move on from the whole thing. M. Fruitfly says, not the a-hole. This is such a typical woman is the temptress situation. It's gross. I'm sure C was like, Elle forced herself on me, and his wife has sold herself that her husband was led astray. So of course your wife is the bad guy. C is the center of conflict here, so he needs to be the one to adjust his behavior and just not come if it's a problem. I think a lot of us have been in bad relationships. Person was a loser, person was in a relationship, etc. at some point in our lives, and we shouldn't be forever judged by that bad relationship. Elle has moved on, clearly, and the two of you are good. C has to be the one to deal with his relationship and his cheating. If being around L makes him and his wife uncomfortable, then he shouldn't go to these events. It is up to him to work it out with his wife. This situation is complicated. My wife and I met while I was just starting med school, and we fell in love and everything was great. I'm very dedicated to my career, so early on the topic of children was always in the future when I'm done with school and residency. So I will have a 9-to-5 that pays well and supports a family. At that time, my wife, who was at the time just my girlfriend, agreed. The summer before my final year of med school, we got married, and when we talked about future children, The plan was still in the future when I have a 9-to-5 job. My wife is a bank teller, so her hours were always good, but I want to be around for my children, so we agreed to stick with the plan. A few years later, my wife confessed to me that she had always hoped that I would change my mind about children, and that she does not want to be a mother. I was shocked and heartbroken, and I told her that we should probably file for divorce, as I believe children are important, and I want to pass on my genes and keep my family line alive. I'm an only child. My wife said we could avoid getting a divorce. Our relationship is otherwise fantastic, and I love her more than anyone. So here's my wife's solution. I should ask my friends if I could have S with them, so they could have my child. At first, I was resistant, because I thought divorce was where I wanted to go. But then I reflected on the topic. I realized that I love my wife, and I was unsure if I could love another woman as much as I love her. So we made an agreement. In 5 years, when I was a full physician, I would ask my friends if they would agree to our situation. My wife and I worked out the details at that time. I would offer child support, because money is not a problem for us. I was blessed that between scholarship and my family's funds, I did not have to take out loans for my education. And I would not be a father to the child. However, if the mother would allow it, I could visit and be like an uncle. So that was 5 years ago. I have the job I want, and I have 2 friends who said yes. One is my 2 good friends from med school. They are married, but the husband is sterile, so they were planning on finding a sperm donor. But they prefer me and said yes. The second is a friend from my residency class. She is currently single and has no plans on ever getting married. Again, she was planning on finding a sperm donor, but when I offered, she said yes. When I told my wife the good news, she was appalled. She said she never expected any of my friends to agree to this sort of deal. Now I am upset, and divorce is back on the table, because she is going against the agreement we made 5 years ago. She states that it is ridiculous that I would think she actually would accept that I father children to other people. She says that she hoped that none of my friends would accept, and that I would have given up. OP's wife essentially gave OP an impossible task, hoping that would lead to the same conclusion as her, child-free at best. But it didn't, and now she is upset. OP needs to both decide how important this is to him and how much is at stake before OP calls it quits for good. There is simply too much invested and too much to lose if OP does otherwise. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Deleted user says, "Not the a-hole. It's time to file for divorce. She basically married you thinking she could change you and then tested you by offering a solution she was never going to be okay with." Inna12 says, "Not the a-hole. This whole thing is incredibly weird. I don't quite understand why you would want to be a father without being a father. But whatever, that's beside the point. The point is, you're not an a-hole. She's the a-hole for suggesting you impregnate a friend when she was only saying it because she was hoping all your friends would say no. As you mentioned, it's not like she changed her mind. It was her plan all along to suggest it and hope that no one would be crazy enough to say yes, which is incredibly manipulative." Orinal says, "Not the a-hole. You will probably get a lot of comments of, 'How could you ever do that to your wife?' But ignore it. It sounds like you had a rational conversation about what your hopes and expectations were, and she offered a solution that kept you together. Now she's going back on it because she never thought what she suggested would actually happen? That's wildly unfair to you. This is twice now, from the sound of it, that she's deceived you. First, she told you she wanted kids. Then she told you could have them elsewhere." My wife and I have been together for 5 years. Even when we were dating, we both always expressed our desire to have more children. I already have an 8-year-old son who I had before I met her. She has been absolutely amazing to him, and he adores her. 2 years ago, I mentioned that I wanted to try for another child, and we began looking at potential donors. We finally picked one, but she said she wanted to be the one to pay for it, and that she wanted to be off work that day to actually participate in the insemination. I found it odd, her wanting to save for it by herself, but agreed and waited for 8 months without mentioning it, assuming that she was saving. September 2018 came by, and I mentioned it again to her, and she simply said she doesn't have enough money saved, and maybe it wasn't the best time right now, since we were moving. I said okay, figured it was logical, and waited again. As we settled into our new house, and it is now April 2019, I asked again if she thought we should try. At this point, I really want to have another child. She says no, because that same day she discovers that her job is switching companies, and she may be out of a job during the change. I told her I had no problem paying for the process, as I always have money set aside, and I also pay all of our bills. She was firm on the no and didn't want to discuss it further, and to my sadness, I just said okay. I never mentioned it trying for another child to her again, because I just felt like she didn't want to have children at that point. Then around October 2019, she tells me she wants to try again. At this point, I'm filled with joy. I finally can add another addition to our family. I come from a big family and always wanted a huge family myself. Then I fell sick and discovered that I had a tumor in my lung, non-cancerous. So my wife said to wait until we discovered what was wrong. My doctor said I was cleared to try again in March 2020, and I wanted to start the process immediately. But to my disappointment, my wife has said no because of virus, and that she wants a spring baby, not a winter baby. Now I was just fed up, tired of the excuses, and without her, I ordered from the bank and completed the insemination without her, and it was successful. I shared the news with my wife, and she is furious. She's upset I did it without her approval, and that I went against her demands. She says I left her out of an important marital issue, and I was being selfish. I argued that it's been 2 years. She knows how bad I want children, and she's not being considerate of my feelings and desires in all of this. Edit. Me changing jobs does not equate me to being jobless. My health issues, which I've mentioned constantly, were consulted with my doctor, are not a factor. I never said that I did not disagree with my wife in considering that my health wouldn't be a problem during the pregnancy or in the years to come. Didn't sleep last night, so my wife and I talked when she got home, and I apologized over and over, knowing how I left her out of something important. If I really took the time to think it through, I probably wouldn't have been so impulsive in my actions. She confessed to me she never really wanted to have kids. She doesn't like the idea of me being pregnant at all, and isn't generally interested in seeing any woman pregnant, ever. It isn't attractive to her, and she's sorry she put off telling me for so long, knowing it meant so much to me. She loves our family and my son as her own, but that's because she never had to be there before he was born. She doesn't think she'll be here for the entire pregnancy, and I understood. The damage I caused is far from being repaired, and it may never be. OP's wife sucks for not saving in the first place, or making more effort to do this over the 2 years, but I would agree with her that losing a job, virus, and discovering a tumor are very good reasons not to have a child at that time. Lack of money or health can have a direct impact on the child and being able to bring it up. And OP is definitely in the wrong, because you do not bring a child into a marriage without both partners being aware of it and fully happy to be participating. If it was really so important, then OP should have made it clear that OP is going to do it now. Deleted user says, "You're the a-hole. What you've done is incredibly selfish. Instead of mediating the issue, you've made a decision that could potentially impact you both for the next 18 years. I don't blame your spouse for being angry." The Mickey says, "You're the a-hole. You're setting this poor child up for resentment from your wife. Yes, she was dragging her feet, but getting pregnant in secret is a shady move. There might have been a deeper underlying issue to her dragging her feet. It's too late now, but I hope she comes around, or your poor baby will be the one to suffer for it." Deleted user says, "Everyone sucks here. She should have communicated whatever her issue is, instead of making excuses to put it off. But you're crazy if you think there was ever going to be any outcome besides the one you got." Me, 31 female, and my husband, Ben, 30 male, have been together for 7 years. Every year on his birthday, I do Yes Day. I don't care about mine. Whatever he asks me, within reason and respect, I do it, and it's just for 1 day. It's a tradition of ours, and Ben loves it, as he had a complicated childhood, adolescence, that his grandparents were crazy and believed that birthdays were a way to get money out of people. Yes, at that level. Ben lived with him until he was 16, so he never actually celebrated his birthday. We had our first child less than 2 weeks ago, and my delivery was a cesarean. Although we have studied, practiced, etc., it has been extremely difficult as we are first-time parents. I'm in too much pain to sit up and bend over, so our daughter stays on his side of the bed. Every other day, sometimes in a row, so he can pick her up when she wakes up. Saturday was his birthday. At dawn, our daughter started crying, and I asked him to take it, and he did. But while I was breastfeeding, I saw him taking the crib to my side, and when I asked, he gave his naughty smile and said, "Yes, Day." I confess that I hadn't even remembered that. But I just said to go back to his side, as this request was unreasonable, considering we had about 5 more hours in the morning. I felt he got annoyed, but he did as I asked. He's been cooking these days because, like I said, a lot of pain. I'm very sensitive to it. At breakfast, he asked me to do something and I accepted. It was nothing impossible. The part that started to piss me off. Had to change diapers. Yes day. Change clothes. Yes day. Bathe. Yes day. I was already annoyed, and when he asked me to change the diaper again, in his turn, I said he has hands and feet for that. He said, "Baby, come on, please. Yes day." And I replied with, "Yes day doesn't exempt you from being a father for a day with a newborn and leaving your wife alone to take care of the daughter you and I made." He got angry and went for a walk for a few hours. And he even didn't want to leave the room, but he helped with some things with our daughter. He didn't even want to order food delivery for dinner. I'm feeling a little bad, because even though he doesn't say it, it's pretty clear that I ruined his birthday for him. Am I the a-hole? Please call me Rain says. Not the a-hole. He ruined his birthday for himself with his own unreasonable expectations. Birthday doesn't mean you're magically off of bed rest. Verity41 says, not the a-hole. He has violated one of your fundamental tenets for this game. Remember, you said, within reason and respect in your second sentence. Might be time to retire this, honestly childish game anyway. He is clearly taking advantage and getting carried away. He's ruined the tradition. After this year, it's not something I'd want to keep doing and remember from here on out. Nobody's fault but his own. My anxiety made me do it, says. Not the a-hole. You had major surgery 2 weeks ago. He needs to be a grown-up and deal with the fact that his birthday is on the back burner this year.